are you?
I'm all right.
Well,
All right. I would rather be playing, but
I know.
I'm all right.
Well, we'll get into all this stuff. But we was just
In
talking.
due time.
We were talking to Craig. He goes,
Rob will start yelling at you and grilling you.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
I go, how much time you have? And he goes, I got all the time to work. He says, at some point, I got to get back and have dinner with my wife. This is how nice this guy is. He's flying, and you were recruiting, right?
I was out recruiting.
And you were flying into Portland, and I hit you up, said, hey, you want to come on the show? I said, yeah, I'll just stick around Portland for a little bit. Come in studio.
Turned out to be a great day to wander around town, get a cup of coffee.
I appreciate it. Cool.
My pleasure.
Well, so it's got to be hard recruiting out of Corvallis. I was just thinking that because, you have to fly into Portland, then huff it back down there. And
Right, it is. And that's one of the things, that's one of the disadvantages, but it's just a hurdle. It's not impossible. You just have to hustle. We talk about getting on the road and seeing our counterparts from UCLA, USC, Arizona. They'll have practice, jump on their private plane, go see the same guy I'm going to see, and then they're back for practice the next day or even the same night. And then I end up having to have my assistants handle practice while I fly back the next day. But it's not insurmountable. It's just you have to hustle.
How has recruiting changed since you've been there? When you go out on the road, the reception you get.
Well, people know who Oregon State is. That's terrific, and that has to do with a combination of things. First and foremost, we're playing better, and we have a little bit of cachet now, at least name brand recognition. The other thing is the football team's doing well. When the football team does well, that helps us. And, it helps that I'm related to the President of the United States, that I always have told you guys that since I've gotten here. That enables you to sort of have a little bit of name recognition when you're not one of the top tier, basketball schools in the country.
Well, you're able to stand out that way.
Exactly.
Because a lot of kids.
Use what you got.
You have to use what you have. And the key, guys, I think, is getting to the smaller group, because when you're recruiting top 100 guys, everybody's recruiting them. And if you can make it to the top 5 or top 7, that's when things start to happen. Because if you make it in that group and guys drop out, next thing you know, you're in the top 3.
So when you were talking about recruiting, who else does it your way? I mean, in other words, how many schools are like UCLA as in the scenario you described versus how many schools are have to do it the way you do it?
In the Pac-12, I would say it's probably ourselves, Washington State. Cal's probably hustling around because of the state of the economy in California. Utah and Colorado, I think, they're living off their Big 12 money, so they're probably chartering.
But
and the same thing is that there's some teams who charter their teams from game to game. We're still flying commercial.
And meanwhile, Dana Altman just down the street is zipping around, and Lord knows what he's zipping around in.
That's
Phil
right.
Knight's got.
That's right. But we, as you guys know me by now. We don't use that as an excuse. We just have to. We know it's one of those obstacles that we have to overcome.
Here's my thing with what we're hearing about the season, because it wasn't the season you wanted. Obviously.
No, disappointing.
It started off well, though. I mean, you had some nice wins in there, a couple tournament teams. You had the close loss against Kansas, and then conference play hit. And
I got to tell you guys, even I didn't realize what the loss of Angus Brandt and Daniel Gomez was going to be, along with having lost Jared to the pros. That this team was made to have all 3 of those guys and to take the next step, and we didn't have them. And
it was huge.
It was
it
huge.
Changes everything, doesn't it?
It did. But I like the way the guys hustled this year. They played hard every single game.
Well, my thing is, if you want a measuring stick on the job that you've done, macro view of it, look no further than, and again, this is just our own opinion because we hear from fans. When Jay John and they in that group went 0-18 or whatever it was, that was the year he got fired. You come in. We didn't hear boo from Oregon State fan. Very little. But now, subpar year, a couple things don't go your way.
Right.
Guys go down. You lose Jared Cunningham. We're hearing a lot from that guy Craig Robinson needs to be fired and this that. And if you step back and look at it, that's why you've done a decent job.
Right.
Because expectation and passion are way up. And because you've raised the bar, all of a sudden then I think fans lose sight of the disadvantages like the travel, like the facilities,
Right.
that still are not up to par with some of the other schools.
No, Isaac. I appreciate you seeing the big picture on that, because that's what we're telling our players to keep them going. That we've come a long way, and we want our fans to be disappointed when we don't play well. We're trying to make this one of the elite programs in the Pac-12. We want to raise those expectations. We want them to be disappointed when we're disappointed. And the blowback is on me. I can handle that. I tell the guys, just keep focused on what we're doing. We're getting better. We didn't have the results we wanted to have this year. I mean, we were trying to calculate over the phone when I was talking to a recruit the number of games we lost by 6 points or less, and it was around 9 or 10 games in the conference. So we're, as long as Bob DeCarolis and Ed Ray are, they understand, and Mike, those guys in the locker room understand, I'm pushing forward.
Have you talked to Bob DeCarolis about your future?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like this, you've already.
Yeah. Oh, we had we had dinner at the Pac-12 after we lost, and I was there. Charlie Sitton got inducted into the Hall of Honor.
Mm-hmm.
So Bob and I had dinner after that, and he was very understanding. He knows what we're trying to do. He like I and like the whole Beaver Nation wanted a better year this year, but he understands what we're doing and how we're going about it, and I feel very confident and very supported by the administration.
Is next year a big year for you, though?
It is, and see, it's a great thing. Now, next year becomes the biggest year, and it's important. And I'll be the first one to come in and talk to you guys if I don't think I'm the right guy. I'll be happy to tell you. But I think we can get it going. I think the investment in the practice facility. I think the new TV deal for the Pac-12 is going to help all of the schools, but it's going to help more the have-nots than people know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have a year of having an experience being in Pac-12 games. So I'm really looking forward to next season. But Suk, you're right. It's going to be a tough year. And then, we have to produce.
This is Oregon State coach Craig Robinson in studio with us here on 1080 The Fan and live on Comcast Sportsnet. Very open and honest, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
What do recruits say? I mean, what are the – because you don't have a lot of the selling points that other schools have. So especially when you have a year like this, how many doors close because of the year like this? And what are their big concerns about you in Oregon State?
See, if we're going after guys who are being recruited by the UCLAs, the Arizonas, the Michigan States, the top programs, we're not selling them on what we're doing now. We're selling them on the future. And what they can get from us right away is opportunity, whereas they can go to a bigger program that's got a bunch of guys in front of them, and they can sort of work their way up the food chain. So that's the main thing we're selling is opportunity. We also sell the Pac-12. I mean, that's a big deal now, and we're on ESPN. I mean, we had a bunch of games on ESPN this year. That helps us out a lot. And then, finally, the one of the biggest things, I mentioned the Pac-12 and I mentioned the playing time, but the biggest thing is the player development. When you see guys who aren't pros when they're recruited, like I'll use Shabazz Muhammad because everybody talked about him being a pro. We don't get those guys. But when you take a Jared Cunningham and he develops into a pro, you take an Eric Moreland and he develops into a potential pro, and Angus Brandt, who probably gets some looks in some camps, that's what kids are looking at. They say, well, these guys at least know what they're doing basketball-wise because they're taking guys who weren't pro prospects and making them pros.
Let's just dial that back a little bit. Like Jared Cunningham, you just need to a little slower development.
Yeah.
So with the next guy, let's keep him in school one more year.
Yeah.
Can you just slow that down a little bit?
And that's just a tribute to his work ethic because you guys remember when he first came in, he was a charge waiting to happen. I mean, it was like he'd get in foul trouble, 3 charges and a reach.
Well,
and he couldn't shoot a jumper.
Well, I remember the conference tournament last year where everyone all of a sudden looks up and is like, well, maybe this isn't crazy that this kid can be a first-round pick.
Yeah. So we next year we'll hopefully have Eric Moreland. Hopefully he won't leave early, but that's something you got to consider when guys are developing the way they do in our program.
So hard.
It's hard to keep them.
Well, as we were talking about off the air, because you were talking to, I hope I can say this on the air. You were talking about a deal. You were having lunch with Coach Riley.
Talking to Coach Riley and Bob DeCarolis about.
And Riley said the same thing is true as he's built his success in football. You know, when your big boys leave in football, at Oregon State, it hurts you a lot worse than a plug and play like USC and like Ohio State. You can get elite guys and you have them. But if you lose Eric Moreland, if you lose Jared Cunningham, you're not capable of building that depth at a school like Oregon State, and that's true in football too. And that's a great point.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot. When you're at an Oregon State, your second tier guys compared to second tier guys at USC for football and Arizona basketball and UCLA basketball, those second tier guys are elite, and our second tier guys have to develop. And it's just if you take a hit either from guys going pro or from injuries, there's a big drop off.
Yeah.
But you look at the rise in mid-majors in college basketball, and I would think for a school like Oregon State, that's a very good thing. When you look at guys, what VCU has done, what Butler's done, St. Louis, these teams that have, Creighton, that have built programs like this, they built it by having programs that keep guys for 4 and 5 years. And there's an advantage to that when you do have a senior-laden team, and eventually you get to the point where 1 through 8 you like your team and you're not having to roll through 4 new guys every year.
Right, and we'll be able to test that next season, hopefully, because, you have to build that up over years.
Yeah, it doesn't happen in 3 years.
It doesn't happen in three or 4 years, and if you have some time to build that up, I agree with you totally. I mean, the fun part of my job is watching our guys develop into really good players from being sort of off the radar screen.
Right. This is Craig Robinson. Can you stick around for another segment?
Absolutely.
I have more I want to talk.
We got to talk about the Beaver Shark, too.
I'm sorry, what?
The Beaver Shark.
Oh,
the rebranding.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
that's true.
You guys, the Beaver Shark. You like it? I love it.
I do. I like the Beaver Shark.
Yeah.
I think it's good.
It's aggressive.
Yes.
Well, I want to talk about my man, the POTUS.
Okay, we can talk about him.
And then I'd be curious to know if if a coach calls you and says, "Hey, I need some info on the Ducks. I'm scouting them. We're in the Sweet 16." Rick Pitino calls you. I want to hear what you would say about them as they get ready to play in the Sweet 16.
Okay,
so things like that.
All right.
And some more criticism is coming your way. I'm just gonna brace you.
I'm ready for it. Okay.
There's one other thing that one of our listeners brought to our attention that I want to ask you.
Okay.
So all of that is next. Thanks for sticking around. Always good to talk to Craig Robinson, Oregon State basketball coach. He'll be with us next. All right, time is 4:35. We have Oregon State basketball coach Craig Robinson in studio with us here on 1080 The Fan and on Comcast Sportsnet. Nice enough to stick around for another segment here. So we'll start this segment with the bad stuff. We'll get all that out of the way, and then we'll move on to some fun stuff.
Okay.
But here's what I hear. So the season was subpar, and a lot of people heard you the first segment, and I think all of that is valid, and they're great points. Mm-hmm. But they'll say excuses. They'll say all excuses. Let's go down to X's and O's. Why can't Craig Robinson hire an assistant coach that all he does is work on defense? Because I don't know what you think, but assess what the defense did this year.
But let me back up for a minute, because you guys know, and I make it clear to everybody every time I get interviewed that when I'm explaining what's going on, never do I make an excuse. I give reasons, and I'll take the blame for the entire thing. So the fans, I think, understand that. So
the reasonable ones do, Craig. They do.
But the ones
never
who
gonna
don't,
convince
you're not going to convince
everyone.
Them. So now, to get to the question about a staff member, it's interesting. My dad had a saying a long time ago: "Dance with the girl that brought you to the prom." Mm-hmm. And so part of it is loyalty. Part of it is my staff has helped us get to where we are now.
You believe in them.
I believe in them. They have done a terrific job getting us to this point. Now, maybe there might be a need to reassess some responsibilities there. I'll give you that. But what I'm up against are, we've got a staff with 3 assistant coaches, and the rest I have are students, managers. And so I'm going to increase my staff, and I'm going to look at possibly hiring a veteran coach who just wants to do X's and O's but doesn't want to do the recruiting, because right now the recruiting is the lifeblood of being good. I mean, I can't X and O my way out of players who aren't competitive athletically or competitive from a skill standpoint. So I've got a group of guys who can recruit some guys. As you guys have seen, we have gotten some better players in since we've been here. So I don't want to rock the apple cart there. So it's a combination of resources, it's a combination of loyalty, and it's a combination of my team likes the voices they hear right now. Because if that wasn't the case, they wouldn't play as hard as they do and as hard as they did up until the very end of the season. I mean, we went up to Colorado and beat Colorado at altitude, and then gave them a good game in the tournament. Players play hard when they believe in what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So it's a delicate balance of snatching a guy out and bringing somebody new in at this stage of the game. Now, I'll give it to you. If next year, if we don't make a jump next year, I might have to make some changes. But as of right now,
are you talking about defensively or just in general?
Just in general. Just in general. I think defensively we have to get better.
Yeah.
And the problem with being as offensive as we have been, your defense it takes a beating. I mean, any team that's scoring in the high 70s, they're not going to be at the height of scoring defense. You got to work on percentages because you're shooting the ball a lot, and that's more exciting to play, and it helps us recruit more than be a better defensive team.
I thought I heard you say in there that there is a chance here. I don't know if you meant this season that you will hire an extra staff member.
There's a chance for this upcoming season that we'll get a director of basketball operations position.
Okay.
Which can go to anybody. So, we'll see what the funding is for that position.
Right. As some of this Pac-12 money comes in here, the new TV deal in the next couple of years,
we'll be able to build out our staff. Yeah, we'll be able to build out our staff so that it's more competitive to the staffs of the other teams in the conference and national.
That's good.
When you look at what you're trying to build and you look inside your building and you have a Mike Riley there, I mean, you want to talk about a guy that built something. I remember getting recruited by his predecessor. His recruiting pitch to me was, if you get hurt and no one else wants you, you can still come play at Oregon State. That was the pitch back in 95, 96.
Right.
Mike Riley has built something there. Pat Casey obviously has built something there. Have you talked to them and gotten some advice of how they were able to build their programs?
Absolutely. And the great thing about a guy like Mike Riley is that our teams all have training table at the same place, and it's right next to the football office. So when my guys are in there having breakfast after having worked out in the morning, Mike Riley comes in and has breakfast, and he sits around, talks to the guys, he chats with me. He's been very gracious with his time and his experience. And, the biggest thing that I take away from Mike Riley is just what you're talking about, sort of his ability to make his team feel like it's a family. And recruits like to see that. Parents like to see that. Even some AAU coaches like to see that. So,
keyword some. All right, we have Craig Robinson in studio. Now the Ducks are playing the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
If Rick Pitino called you up and said, "Hey man, what do you think? Give me something about the Ducks. Scout the Ducks for me." What would you tell him?
Well, now you want me to help them win or help them lose? No, I'm just kidding. Now, if the Ducks are, now you talk about a team that's sort of aligned perfectly for this season. I mean, you got 4 seniors. That's first and foremost. And none of them were Player of the Year candidates. So that's a great team effort that they've put together for this season. And what I would tell Pitino is these guys can beat you a lot of different ways. They can beat you running in the transition. They can beat you in the half-court offense. They can beat you on the boards. And they can beat you on the hustle plays. I mean, those are 4 categories that are hard to stop, which is why they're in the Sweet 16. Now, I think that they turn the ball over a lot, and Louisville is going to press them. So, that's what we tried to do when we were at their place, just make the game fast enough where they had more turnovers than they had scores, but we just couldn't take advantage of them. and Louisville will be looking to take advantage of them. So that's sort of the scouting report on them. But I know my Beaver Nation fans hate it. I was on the TV last weekend, and I was talking about we as the Pac-12 need these guys to go to now go to the Elite Eight. I mean,
Beaver fan doesn't want to hear you.
They don't want to hear me rooting for Oregon. So I will say I'm rooting for the Pac-12.
Yeah. Well, Arizona's still alive.
Arizona's still alive, and I think that we're starting to get a little bit more of our respect and our cachet back.
Well, I would hope so. I mean, last year the regular season champ didn't go to the tourney.
And that was our fault.
Yeah, right. You guys beat him.
We beat him.
That's never happened before.
Yeah.
So way to go, Craig Robinson, for wrecking the reputation of the Pac-12.
Is that UCLA job? Is that as good a gig as everybody says it is?
Well, let's face it. It's UCLA. I wonder what I could do walking into a living room with those 4 letters on my chest.
Right.
I mean, everybody thinks that about UCLA. But what comes with that job is high-level scrutiny. And these jobs, look at Oregon State.
Yeah.
High-level scrutiny here in Corvallis.
Yeah.
Folks are
Who knew?
saying, get the heck out of here. But that
3 Final Fours doesn't get it done at UCLA.
It doesn't get it done at UCLA. But if you can handle that part of the job, which you should be if you're in it, because it part and parcel comes with it, it's got to be a terrific job. I mean, it's got to be, it's the name brand recognition is huge. The location is huge. The pedigree, the culture,
new
the
arena
history,
too, don't they have a new arena?
and then
down there?
finally the facilities now have caught up with everybody else. I mean, that place
Yeah.
is beautiful. I mean, we went down there this year and played down there. It's fantastic, and so it is a good job. It's just I think what you're seeing nowadays is what we're just talking about. If you're going to go through the kind of scrutiny that we have to go through, you want to be someplace where you're going to have a chance to build it up and get
Given
it going
time.
your way and some time, because we all want to keep our jobs, just like you guys want to keep your jobs. It's not like we're coaching the league. Yeah. So that's what I think you're seeing. I think you're seeing a lot of guys saying, well, I'll go with the devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do want to ask you about the Beaver Shark, the rebranding of the Angry Beaver. So much is made about, football. I mean, that's usually they see the helmets and that gets rolled out there, but that trickles down to every program. I mean, does that help at all when you get an influx from Nike like that?
Absolutely. Especially when our neighbors down the street are kind of Nike. Yeah. It's nice to get some attention for and a partnership with a place like Nike. They have, you can tell with the logo, the whole branding, but the uniform, the basketball uniforms, it exudes coolness now. I mean, and that's what helps me recruit. If you can show coolness and non-stodginess, I don't even know if that's a word.
I know what you mean.
But it's and partnering up with a company like Nike, it's all good. And I like the way the new logo looks. I mean, I like your guys' description of it, the shark beaver. Yeah. I never thought of that, but it's
Beaver
sleek.
Shark.
It's sleek.
I liked the stuff. I thought it all looked good.
Well, you guys are getting there. I mean, you take over a team that was 0-18 in the Pac-12. You immediately make them 500. 3 years later, you got a kid going to the NBA, and you're worried about another one maybe making the jump. And so, and then in a new rebrand, and the facilities are coming along. I mean, it is a long, slow build at a school like Oregon State.
It is. And it was funny. Last year people were talking about me taking the DePaul job. That's what's so crazy about this whole business. It's like 1 year you're hot, and the next year you've forgotten everything you've known.
Yeah,
about
you're a terrible coach. Last year you were great. This year you're terrible.
Don't take the DePaul job, and so that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. Like I said, if my family's okay, which they absolutely love living in Corvallis,
do they?
And my boss is okay, and the locker room's okay, I'm having a blast. I cannot wait to bust out that practice facility for our guys to work out in. Too.
Unfortunately, if no more FOMO or photobombing the inauguration.
Right. Oh, did you like that?
Last white.
I wish I had done that on purpose. That was just the angle of
just there.
It looked perfect.
It did. It was well placed. The dome was large and in charge right there behind.
And it looked like my head was twice the size.
Everyone kept asking whether or not it was Photoshop, because it did. It popped. It popped on the big screen.
Well, speaking of family, how's Michelle doing?
Great.
Often you talk to her?
They're doing great. I we just spoke. She was I was on CBS Sports Net doing the NCAA stuff.
Oh, cool.
So she was watching that and texting me right in the middle of it. And but she's doing fine. So we talked this past weekend, and the second time around is better than the first time. I can't tell you. You know what? This is funny. I'll share this with your listeners. I was so nervous on election night this year because the second time around it's really a referendum on the job he did the first time. The first time around, we didn't have any expectations. You win, you lose. This has been fun, a lot of work, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. This time around, I was so nervous that I literally thought to myself, I will lose all my games this season if he wins. And I think somebody heard me.
Don't make that deal with the devil next time.
No. He owes me now.
I'm assuming, though, that when you get tired of hearing the criticism, you can call up the brother-in-law, and he probably makes you feel a little bit better.
Right.
He helps you out handling criticism because he gets a little bit
more than I do. But you guys know this is one of those jobs where you're gonna get it, and watching him get it makes my little criticism.
Right. Well, you guys both handle
easy.
It very well.
Well, thanks.
When you're on the phone with Michelle, now is it always monitored? Can you ever have a private conversation?
Oh yeah. We can have. You got to know the private number, but we can have a private conversation.
The bat line.
You want to just leave? But slide that over.
If you get a call from the White House, everybody's listening.
Yeah.
But if you get a call from the cell phone,
then you're legit.
Yeah,
then
she's
you're
good.
legit.
All right, good deal. Well, tell the POTUS hello.
I will.
From me.
I will.
And from Suki.
Even though I didn't vote for him.
That's okay.
Again.
That's all right. I knew the first time you didn't vote for him, but that's okay.
At least I was honest. The first time we met, I think it was at the Oregon Sports Awards.
That's right.
There's nothing worse than the kiss ass that won't tell you the truth. So we were talking about it, and I said, hey, just to let you know, didn't vote for him. At least I'm going to be open and honest about it.
Well, hey, it was nice to have you, and thank you for being gracious with your time and sticking around in Portland and coming in studio with us.
My pleasure. You guys know I'm big fans. Big fans.
Oh, of us?
Of you guys, yeah.
You're the one.
Yeah.
He's the guy carrying the ratings on this program.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's the reason why we're 70. We can just get one more on board. 69 can't be far behind.
Well, thanks a lot, Craig. Safe travels back home, and we'll catch up soon, okay?
Thanks for having me.
You got it. Craig Robinson, Oregon State basketball coach. 449. This is 1080 The Fan. Let's see if any of you remembered our little prize bribe offer from earlier in the show. Looks like they did, Dusty. The phones are blinging up. Bob Seger tickets on the line right now. Coming up a little bit later, if you stick around, because Bob Seger and Joe Walsh will be here Saturday night. A little bit later in tonight's show, we'll give away a pair of tickets to the Spring Beer and Wine Fest 2. So if for no other reason, content included, you do not want to stick around, you should just try to win
even
our
if
prizes.
You can't stand us,
yeah,
please stick around.
That's why we call them prize bribes.
To win tickets.
Well, there goes Craig Robinson. I thought he was as honest as you can be, right? About his situation down there.
I really like Craig Robinson. I think he's a nice guy. I think he's a good guy. I think he's the right guy. But ultimately, I mean, he said it. Next year is a big year.
They probably got to make the tournament next year.
It's going to be a make it or break it, at least the NIT. I think you make the NIT, and I think you're going to be fine. Obviously, the goal is the NCAA tournament. But, yeah, I don't think he makes excuses, but I think he's honest about the job that he had and the difficulties that exist there when you're trying to build that program.
Yeah, I mean, I really feel like just from our little neck of the woods here, our little corner of this, it's pretty interesting to see how many people are passionate about this now that they had a bad year, and how many people weren't terribly passionate, at least it just in the feedback in our world, when they went 0-18 and Jay John and that thing was, there was so much apathy. Nobody cared. It was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
But now, Craig Robinson has built that at least to the point where people expect more. Mm-hmm. And when you expect more and you raise the bar, that's when you sort of lose sight of the disadvantages. And that's all I'm saying with him is don't lose sight of what he has to deal with. I think the biggest thing that he said about this season was you put a guy in the NBA that you didn't expect that would go to the NBA.
No, the team was largely going to be built around.
They were built around. Yeah, exactly. And then you lose two other guys. So the top three guys that you built this thing around, two of them got hurt. One of them went to the NBA. And at a school like Oregon State, it's not plug and play, man. No. You don't have that kind of depth. You never will.
That's a killer.
And so hence the season. So just like you said, everybody's talking about the DePaul job last year. He's a genius, and now this year nobody wants him. Folks, it's just not that up and down. He's a good coach. It is a long, slow build at Oregon State, and I think they'd be foolish to move on from him, even if next year is subpar, because, again, be careful what you wish for at a school like Oregon State. Who the hell are you going to hire?
Yeah.
It's not like they had 10 guys lined up to take that job when he took it over. You're lucky to have them.
I remember, and we were joking about this off the air, and he's always been good about coming on. The first time he was on the program, I had to drop it with all due respect. Why did you take this job? Because I mean, there was a big kind of groundswell there that believed this was the worst job in America when you're talking about BCS Power Conference Division I college basketball. And look, it's when you take over a job where it's fair to ask that question, yeah, you're probably going to need some time to build that. But he was honest and said next year is a big year for him.
He knows.